Welcome to Playful Beginnings, a podcast about the magic of play therapy for therapists, students, and anyone interested. In our podcast, we'll explore the deeper understanding of play therapy and the skills we use when working with children.
We hope to help you understand the why behind what we do and how it helps kids heal and grow. I'm Dr. Kristie Opiola, a working play therapist and university professor in North Carolina.
I'm Dr. Maggie Parker, a play therapist and professor in DC. Good morning, Kristie.
Morning, Maggie.
How are you?
August. I'm good.
August. It's back to school.
I know it's a crazy time of the year.
It is. It's been really interesting since we've started having these conversations, recognizing kind of the emotional kind of overwhelm that is occurring within my own home. And it's helped. Well, I try and be calm and empathic and remind myself that we're struggling right now. I mean, it took like 45 minutes of crying today so there's just a lot of feelings. And so if there are parents out there, play therapists working with kiddos right now, might be some
sudden urgency for play therapy services.
Yep. Kind of maybe keep this in the back of your mind that maybe there's something going on that we don't necessarily recognize, because we still have like 3 weeks left of summer. But
well, I think it matters where you are. I think the kiddos here go back next week.
Oh yeah, I think Mississippi
and Texas posts are kids already back in school. So
yeah, but just meaning that like it can maybe come up more quickly or like earlier than maybe we thought.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as we talked about last week.
Yeah. And last week we alluded to this idea of social stories or structured doll play, which is part of the CPRT curriculum. So the child-parent relationship curriculum. So we thought we would talk more about that today. And it's not something I would use as a CCPT therapist. I wouldn't engage with my clients with structured play, but I may help parents understand how to do structured doll play, or if they're like expressing a particular anxiety-provoking experience for their kids, or maybe a big life-changing experience, or something that's altered their family, right? Like death or something like that. Those are the times that you could use structured doll play and help parents to know how to utilize it so they could help provide some predictability, some structure to their kiddos day to day. I do know I've used this like with my nephews in the past when they were little, and they loved it. And and they would be like, tell me again the story of, and so you can repeat it in that way. And it may be a one time, it may be an evolving story, it may be, something that becomes a regular ritual for your kiddos. So, or for the kiddos that you.
Yeah. So I wonder, Kristie, like before we go into like kind of what it is, maybe you could introduce like how you as a play therapist bring this up with the parent. So if I'm the parent and I'm like, my children are melting down.
Yeah.
Help. Because
help.
That's a little reality.
Yeah. And I think it would kind of depend. I'm not going to have like exact wording I use because I think it's unique per parent, per situation. So I do want to say that I don't
use this as a script.
Yes, it's not a scripted piece, but it would be one thing that I would introduce in addition to other things about how parents could support their kiddos who are struggling with a very stressful event. So I think I've shared on the podcast before, I've done a lot around medical trauma and kids who have like chronic illness, as well as adoption, foster care. And so I do bring it up with parents pretty early on as something that they can use to help their child. So I might make it as like a suggestion. There is something that you could do to help provide more structure and ways to help kids know what's about to happen. We call that structured doll play or structured stories that you can use with your kids. For some of the parents that I work with who have kids on the spectrum, those who are neurodiverse, they may have already heard this from occupational therapists, ABA therapists, and other things. So I try to link how they're similar They are slightly different. And so I do bring that up too, because like, social story is just a short story where structured doll play has a beginning, middle, and end. So it is slightly different. But I'll
Mhm.
bring it up as this is something that they can do. It can be a fun way of supporting your child through an anxiety producing event, or if something big is about to happen. So if a parent maybe shares with me that they're getting divorced or they're separating, you can actually prep your kids before that happens through structured doll play. And then you can repeat the story, right? And the story can evolve a little bit. It doesn't have to stay stagnant. It can like mimic real life kind of thing. So if something about the separation or the divorce switched from what maybe was anticipated, you can add that to the structured doll play story. And so that's how I kind of introduce it and see if they're interested in learning about structured doll play.
So it might be me kind of bringing up like, okay, like, so do I create the story or is
You
it like,
do.
so like we're gonna, you're gonna come home from camp one day or when we're at the beach, we're gonna get an email and open it together to see who your new teacher is, or are you thinking more concrete about like going to school?
I think it can be all of those
Okay.
things. I think it doesn't have to be a checklist. This is the only time you use it. You can use it in lots of different ways. You don't want to overuse it. But I think in those major life events or those big anxiety producing, so like for your daughter who does get very stressed out about new teachers, because she feels, I think you shared on our last session, right, that she just feels like she always gets the bad teacher. I might use knowing that the teacher list is coming out this week,
Mhm.
right? And we're going to go to meet the teacher on Friday. I may then create a structured doll play around that whole experience for your daughter so that it can support, so she kind of can be prepped for that before you guys open it, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the cool things I love about structured doll play is you don't have to be overly creative. You don't have to have this vivid imagination to create a structured doll play. You
Yeah.
actually just need the facts, right? Like what are the things that are real life that your child is going to experience and not just the single event. So I think that social stories tends to talk about a single event.
Mhm.
Structured doll play talks more in like storyline. So at the beginning is like, so for Molly, if we were talking about like getting the teacher announcement, right, in an email, I would want it to start at the beginning of the day. The story doesn't start when the email comes in,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
you want her to kind of have where it's grounded in like day-to-day experiences so that she can like so she can understand like how this falls into her normal life because it's something
Mhm.
that like is a typical thing that happens every school year. And then also with structured doll play, you're adding, I don't change the names. I just make the character the names of people in the day-to-day experiences that we're going to experience. So it would be mom, dad, right? Your daughter, your son, your dog, the kittens, all of those things may be part of the storyline. It doesn't have to be something like, there's this big giant wizard and his name is blah. Like you don't need all of that
Right.
in structured doll play. Props do help. So kind of having miniatures or even their stuffies or something else that can help tell the storyline can be a really helpful component to structured doll play. So it's not just a verbal story. It's like you can play it out with creatures, but if you don't have a lot, it's okay.
Yeah.
You can make characters out of spoons, right? Like
Yeah.
it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be anything
Popsicle
like,
sticks.
yeah, it can just be simple, but help aid the story can be helpful.
So, and I'm kind of, I don't do CPRT as much, right? It's been a really long time. And
Yeah.
so I'm like using you as the CPRT expert here.
Okay.
So when you're like, talking with parents, and maybe I'm having a hard time because I feel so rooted in CCPT. I'm like, so do I just introduce what happens? And then I'm like, and what? Or like, Molly, what do you think is going to happen? Because I want to put her back in control, but I think that is not what this is about.
It's
Like, this is
not.
about like rehearsing
It's
what could
rehearsing an event that could happen. I do bring up emotions. I do bring up the things that we would traditionally bring up in CPRT. Again, I'm not doing this with the kids as the
right,
CCP
right.
therapist. This is a tool for parents to use
Yes.
or teachers to use. If you're going on a field trip, you can tell
Great
um,
idea.
yeah, like doll play story with your students before the field trip happens, especially if you have a lot of kids who have a hard time with transition, or maybe specials happen on Wednesday and this is the first special day.
Mhm.
So on Tuesday and Wednesday morning, you could do a structured doll play to help them know what to expect today in the event. So it's not something that I necessarily use as the therapist with the client. It is a tool I'm giving out
Mhm.
to parents to be able to utilize.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm literally playing the parent, but this is true and authentic and genuine. I'm
Yeah.
not like
Oh, please.
pretending.
Yeah.
So, okay, so say we're having this conversation because we actually are literally having this conversation. So, thinking about this, would I specifically pick the two teachers that she could get and say we get we had avocado toast for breakfast and we went to school or to
Yeah.
camp and we had so much fun. And then when we went to the pool, we got, mommy got the email. And so we sat down and we had the conversation and let me caveat that none of the teachers that she's had are bad. She just,
Yeah.
she just identifies it because they're different than her brothers.
Yes.
Right. So you don't get the same teacher that Rhodes had last year.
Mhm.
I introduced it that way. And at first, you're really disappointed and you're nervous about what that is because you don't know this new teacher.
I would even start before then. So
Okay.
I might put in there, right? Like as we sit down, Molly is feeling a little anxious. She's not sure what's happening. Mommy feels a little anxious too because she really wants Molly to get the teacher that she wants this year, right?
Mhm.
I might add those things to the story, but this is
Mhm.
not something in our control. So we're both feeling anxious because it feels a little out of control for us. Right?
Mhm.
Like you can add pieces like that in there to help be descriptive for the
Mhm.
kiddos to know how to like, navigate and to identify feelings, which would align a little bit with CCPT that when we see things in the playroom, we are, like if I think a kid is anxious, I'm going to say, you feel nervous or, right?
Mhm.
Like you're
Well, and it's
anxious.
linking up that you feel anxious because you feel out of control.
Yeah.
You don't get to choose, and that feels overwhelming
Hmm.
and kind of scary. And I think that
Yeah.
actually helps kind of enlarge that meaning. And it almost like kind of, I guess in this specific instance, this concrete example, I think so. I often hear from students like you're interpreting or you're like projecting, but like this is literally what's happening. Like she feels incredibly out of control
Yeah.
and she's really nervous and anxious about it. I feel out of control, so I feel really nervous and anxious about it.
Mhm.
I've done
And you're
everything I
picking
can.
up, and I might even say I'm picking up on how anxious you are.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And as much as I'm trying to stay calm, I get a little I have butterflies in my tummy too, right? Like mommy gets butterflies in her tummy too. And so then it's like a shared experience so that she knows when you respond a certain way or something that maybe this is what's happening. So it's
Okay.
helping to bring kind of a little bit of awareness for the kids.
Okay. All right. So like, we sit down, we're nervous, we're anxious, we're feeling out of control. We get the email, we open it.
Well,
Then,
this is your storyline, right? So like you're
right.
telling this before it ever happens,
Right. So we're just like, so
right?
then
Mhm.
I just pick one. I
Yeah,
pick
you
it
pick the
because it's
story
like,
that you want to tell
okay. And so
based
it
on real
probably
life
would,
events with real people.
okay. So it would probably be the teacher that she doesn't know. That would be the most appropriate to have because if it's the teacher, then she does know, then she would be relieved and the anxiety would be gone.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you get the email, we get the email and we open it together and we decide, we find
And
out.
I might say, as I'm telling the story, I might take one of those like stage whispers and be like,
Okay.
I really don't know what's going to happen.
I wonder.
Right? Like this, I don't know what the outcome of this is going to be, Molly.
Okay.
Right? Like I might inject something into the storyline. It's you use this and you replace like regular story that you might tell that day.
And
Right.
so
Like,
like,
so you can read books or stuff like that.
mhm,
This would be in place of that. I have a different type of book I want to read today. Then, like, or a different story I want to tell you today. It's about starting school or finding out who your teacher is. And that's how you kind of like introduce it to the kiddo.
okay. And so like, you can involve them in that storyline and so she could say like, I get Susan and I'm like, okay. And so Molly got Susan for her teacher and she doesn't know, or like, she didn't know Miss Susan. And so she's feeling kind of nervous
She's
or,
a little nervous and maybe a little excited too, or uncertain, right?
mhm,
'Cause she's just not sure what to expect. But, right, when we hear this information, so the story doesn't end when the information happens. The story continues past the time the major event happens. So you almost take it like full day
Okay.
or like a full week, depending on what the story is and what it's based on. And that's why we say it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. The end is not like a cliffhanger of the story. That's in the middle, and then you're going to continue what happens after that, right? So after we learn, right, mommy, daddy, and Molly talk about this for a while, so Molly can share how she's feeling and the uncertainty that she's experiencing, or finding out her best friend is also in the class or something like that. Like she wants to tell her friends so she can figure out who else is in the class. Those may all be part of my storyline that I need to be thoughtful of. So as I'm like prepping parents to do this, I talk to them about, or teachers, right? Think about it in a whole frame of time, not the middle is the event. And then so you're going to have things that happen before the event and things that happen after the event that can be helpful.
So like and so we sit down and you and I, or Molly and I, or Molly and mommy,
Mommy. Yep.
that's going to be
You're going
hard
to keep it in character, right?
in the
That's where
story.
I think the miniatures and the figurines can help because you keep it in the storyline.
Maybe I need to do a ping pong ball and a connector.
There you
Okay.
go.
So Molly and mommy work together because I'm guessing in my mind, daddy's at work. So Molly and mommy.
But maybe daddy's part of the storyline, right? Like when
Yeah.
daddy gets home, Molly can't wait to tell daddy like
Oh,
what
can't
the
wait to tell
email
daddy.
said and who her
And
teacher
who she
is,
found out was
right?
in her class.
And maybe Rhodes was at her son is at baseball. And so when he gets home, Molly wants to tell, and then Rose wants to know who his teacher is. So they go back onto the email, right? Like, can you see how it's a whole
Yeah.
story line instead of
Yeah.
a singular event?
Yeah. And then it's like, could you then extend it? Like, and then, Molly, mommy, Rhodes, and daddy all go to school on Meet the Teacher and they get to see all of their new friends and they get to see where their seat is and they get to see the reading nook and the calm
Mhm.
down corner. And you get to go upstairs for class for the first time. Or Molly gets to go upstairs for class and she's so excited. And Molly gets to
And
be
I
next to
may I
Rose.
may make that one story, or I may add that to the next day and tell that story the next day.
Got it.
Right. So the storylines can build on each other,
Mhm.
especially if it's a really anxiety producing event.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't make this story 30 minutes, that we should probably keep it short and sweet because we're fourth
Well,
graders.
in case she wants you to tell it again, right? Like that's the other piece. She may want you to tell it again,
Mhm.
right, at bedtime, or she may want you to tell it again the next day. And then, so you don't want to make it so complicated that you can't remember the story and you have to record yourself telling the story. So I encourage parents to kind of write out the key points of the story, or the teachers to write out the key points of the story and think about it all the way through a time frame so that we do get to an ending. And an ending may be something traditionally. So if this happens on a Tuesday and you guys always get ice cream on Tuesday night, the story might end at ice cream,
Mhm.
but it doesn't end at finding out who the teacher is. I think
Okay.
that's the really important part
Okay.
of structured doll play, because most of the times what we get to is the main event and then we leave a cliffhanger for kids
And
to
it's over.
expect afterwards. A structured doll story gives like a whole arc of the storyline.
Yeah. So we don't have to go to the end of the school year. We can
Mm-mm.
just, okay, go to the end of the day. Um,
Yeah.
this is really helpful.
So just a few things. And just so people know, I'm pulling it from the first edition of CPRT.
So she's holding up the Bratton Landerth, Kellum, and Blackard
Yeah.
child parent relationship therapy
2006.
treatment manual. So that was
The treatment
2006.
manual. Yep, it's 2006. It's on page 88. I'm pretty sure it's 2006 now that I say that out loud. Yep, 2006.
We
On
cite
page
it so many
88
times.
to 89, I know. And I just want to
Okay.
highlight a few things that are
Yeah.
in the book, right? So we said it involves real life characters. Okay. It's about a story that is real life happenings, typically a future event that's coming up the next day or two. You don't want it like weeks ahead of time. Or it can be something that you engage with day to day that may be a struggle for your kiddo.
Mhm.
So if your kid has a really hard time doing
Myself.
homework, right, when they get home from school,
What
you
all can
could,
we tackle today for my own family
I know,
benefit?
right? You could utilize that as a structured
Yeah.
doll play story too. You want to make sure you have a specific purpose and a clear message. So that's
Mhm.
why I say let's write it out. Jot down the points that you really want to convey and things that you want to remember. You do use dolls to enhance the dramatic effect and help your child remember. You can also use sound effects. So there's your creativity, right? Because that may enrich the story and make it fun and more powerful for your kiddo. Remember the age of your child. So if you're dealing with a younger child, right, who is much more of a concrete thinker, make sure you have concrete facts in your story. Don't make everything so abstract.
Mhm.
We as adults think in abstract, kids do not. They think in concrete things. So make sure everything you put in there has a reason. So don't just add things for fluff.
Yeah.
The story has a beginning, middle, and end. We don't start at the big event. We start as something from the background, like getting up, maybe getting picked up from school because you're going to have a babysitter and your kiddo has a hard time with a babysitter, right? So we're going to start at pick up from school, coming home, playing with friends, getting a snack, right? And then I might add the middle part of the story, which is mommy, and she notices mommy and daddy are getting ready. So they're dressed up. So
Mhm.
something feels different, something feels odd. This is not our regular routine. She starts questioning what's going to happen, right? Like that's where I might add the middle. And then, the doorbell rings and this strange person shows up at the front door. Her name is Julia or whoever, right? And so you're adding those pieces into the story. And you want to make sure you like put in details. So if it's something that's really challenging for your kiddo, when I use this for medical stuff, right? Like we might add there's lots of noises and strange smells and lots of people, right? Like so I'm going to add those little details just to help concrete and make it more predictable. So when we get there. And then at the end of the story, don't leave the child hanging. And I always want to make the end of the story relational. So
Mhm.
that's just my own personal piece to it. So it's something about like everyone reuniting and a big hug and a kiss that we get. Da, da, da. So it's not just this like, and the
Yeah.
story's over. It stays in the relationship component.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Let's see. Using props and
Yeah.
knowing the place. So you do want to tell this at like comfortable time. It's not something you're
Yeah.
just going to throw in there during your day. You don't need to buy a lot of stuff. You probably have most of the stuff you need to tell your story. It's just about
Mhm.
looking around to figure out what you need. They could be stuffed
Mhm.
animals. They could, if you have a daughter, you might have a doll house, right? Or baby dolls nearby. If it's a son, maybe you're using army figures and other stuff. It's totally fine.
Still
They don't
have
have
to.
exact. Know that if you mess up, it's okay.
Yeah.
Your kids actually, it's part of the fun.
Yeah.
So don't like, stress yourself out. Include only those elements in the story that you have control over. And don't add things when you don't think it's true. So don't embellish in a way that you're thinking like, and you're going to have so much fun. And that's not how your child is going to experience it. Try to keep really true to life so it has more oomph behind it.
Because that's more of your hope than it is their reality.
Hmm. Yeah. And
So
then
if it's,
go
sorry,
ahead.
if it's
No.
grounded in fact, would that
Hmm.
be a problem that I'm like guessing what Molly's teacher is going to be? Or we can that just because there's it's like nuanced, right? It's like I mean, we don't know, so we're going to try out
To
the
pick your
worst
own
of the options.
adventure
Yeah.
too, which makes it fun, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes I'll add in things like pick your own adventure,
Yeah.
like two choices.
But I think it also kind of goes back to what we continue to say throughout this
Hmm.
podcast is that like there can be guidelines and like statements that are within the books and that you have to kind of maintain true to the relationship and the theory, and you may have to adapt to the situation and the child.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, the book does say always end the story on a positive note that you can control, right? So that may be like hugs and kisses from you, snuggles at bedtime, getting ice cream, and then whatever you promise in the story, follow through with in real life. Um,
Yes,
get more realistic. So like
say
if I'm
everybody
going
gets
for
a
a story of,
pony.
yeah, no. Unless you're going to buy your child a pony on the first day of school, I would not say the story ends with a pony. And it's okay if the child is interruptive during the story. They may want
Yeah.
to add facts, and that can be helpful,
Yeah.
right?
You
Because
kind of like
they
relinquish
might
some of
open
that
up more.
control that they
Hmm.
can, that like, even though it's somewhat directive of an experience, that the child can still have opportunities to take the lead if needed.
Yes.
Yeah.
The other thing that sometimes happens is that the child might get distracted,
Yeah.
right? Or like kind of veer off from the story altogether, so the story doesn't finish. You can redirect that behavior. So you're welcome to play with that tomorrow or later. Right now, we're going to finish our story. So you kind of bring them back. Or if they want to drink a water to like disrupt it, right? Let's finish the story and then I'll get you a drink of water, right? So helping to make sure you don't leave it at the cliffhanger
Right.
piece.
Yeah.
I hope that's helpful.
I think it's really helpful. I'm going to try it
Yeah.
and then I'll report back next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for parents, structured doll play can be a helpful tool. Again, I've used this for kids who are having medical procedures, first day of school, going to the dentist, something that they
Yeah.
don't want to do. Maybe mom going on a business trip, which is not normal in the family. So helping kids see, right? And so
Mhm.
that story may be a few days, and I might add they're going to sleep 3 times, big sleeps at night, 3 times before mommy comes home, right? And
Mhm.
during that time, they're going to go to school each day, right? And then grandma's going to be here to help them after. So you're going to like build in the components that can help add predictability. So you
Yeah.
can use it for all different events or needs for the kiddo.
Yeah. No, I think this is really helpful. And I really like the thought too of like using it within the classroom and how helpful that would be, especially at the beginning of the year. Like
Or
kind of
big changes,
big
right? Like
changes, right?
I
Even
can't tell you
before
how many
break.
of my kiddos, teachers know they have a hard time with transitions, and then they go on a field trip and they were like, they were terrible. And I was like, field trips are a big transition. They're like, oh, I didn't put those two things together, right?
Yeah.
And so for teachers, that can be helpful.
Yeah.
Use structured adult play.
Yeah. No, I really like, thank you for sharing. I hope that this is helpful for
Sure.
our listeners, for our play therapists to be able to utilize it with your parent clients, for our parents and teachers that are listening, that maybe you can try it along while I'm trying it. And maybe we can have an opportunity where you can send in how it worked
Yeah,
and
we would love to
win.
hear. Another thing that I've done just to help play therapists is I've actually made like a YouTube video about structured doll play
Yeah.
that I can send to parents, right? So we may talk about it in a parent consultation or on a phone call, but then I can follow it through with a link of myself explaining it to parents. So it's not about finding someone else who explains it really well. It's about making your own. So you're extending your practice to parents. And if any of you have seen Lee Ray's story about going to play therapy, that is a
Yes.
structured doll play story. If you think about it, right? That's exactly what she did. She made a structured doll play story about coming to see a play therapist. Another way to think about it too is, like you're taking a vacation and there's going to be a 2 week break for your clients, right? Because you're
Oh,
really
yeah.
on vacation this year. Well, could you create a structured doll play story about you going on vacation and them not having, I mean, there's, as a play
So
therapist,
many
you can
ways.
also utilize this in ways to help prep your clients for transitions that are happening.
Yeah.
If it's coming into therapy, if it's taking a break from therapy, right? Like those could also be ways that are relational to you. So
Yeah.
there are some ways that you can personally use structured doll play more as preparatory and structuring for the kiddos.
Yeah.
So, but I do encourage you to think about and then practice it a few times. If you have your own kids,
Yeah.
play it out with your kids sometimes, and then record a video. If you don't have kids, do it with your fur baby or do it with a friend so you can just get more comfortable with it. Because I
Right.
know you hear from a
Or
lot
in
of
front of the mirror.
young play therapists that don't have kids yet, but I don't have kids, right? You can still practice this stuff.
I practice most things in front of the mirror.
Yeah, of just getting it out or letting your partner hear you or your best friend or another play therapist where you just
Mhm.
practice it so that you have more confidence and you're feeling more self-assured as you're going to share this with others.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, Kristie. This was awesome and very, very
Sure.
helpful and poignant. And I hope that you guys let us know how it goes. Please make sure, please subscribe the podcast and follow us if you're interested on Instagram and Facebook. Instagram is the Play Therapy Space. Facebook is Play Therapy Space. And then if you reach out to our on our website and sign up, we send out newsletters, and I'm going to start putting up hopefully just like little like thing one pagers that can help whether you're a teacher or a play therapist to have some of this information that just would be available for those that sign up for communications and stuff. So we want to be able to make this relevant for you, and always feel free to reach out to us at info@playtherapyspace.com or Kristie@playtherapyspace.com or Maggie@playtherapyspace.com. And we try and respond fairly quickly.
We also want to do a Q&A session
Yes.
coming up. So as you guys write in Q&As, we will have a session about trying to answer the Q&As we get to the best of our abilities. And
Yes.
so, if you have a Q&A about structured doll play or you try it and it's amazing, A, brag and tell us about it because we're terrible about bragging about ourselves. But B, if you struggle, let us know that too because we might be able to give some tips to help you along the way.
Yeah. And you can send them in through email or through direct message, or you can like email us a video and then we can,
Mm.
because I put these up on YouTube. If you guys ever are interested, you can actually see our faces. Um,
Yeah,
and that would be kind of fun to have you like ask us in your video and we could hear your voice.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Kristie. This was so helpful as always. And I just am so grateful for you and our time together.
You too. Thanks for listening, guys. We're hoping this is helpful.
Yeah.
Have a
Bye.
good afternoon.